Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere. This is Zach Couples with episode number 95 of the Movement Debrief. And tonight, folks, let's get it. We're going to talk about shoes. We're going to talk about shoes. What's the deal with shoes? What are my current recommendations that I give my clientele, my supreme clientele? Boom, get that reference on shoes. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about self-correction. How do you know if you're doing these breathing exercises right and you're getting a worthwhile outcome? I'll give you the answer. And last but not least, we're going to talk about position education. How do I educate people on some of this stuff, i.e. clients? How do I educate them in a manner that is non-threatening in terms of what we're doing? These are the questions tonight, and they have been asked by the people. They'll be answered for the people by this people right here. Fam, recognize fam. Without further ado, let's debrief, shall we? The first question comes from Alex. Here's what Alex asks. Shoe selection. I've heard of some different things in terms of certain shoes being recommended for certain presentations. What are my criteria, or what criteria matter to me in shoe selection? Does it even matter? Alex, good 8th question. My thoughts on shoes. I don't think much about shoes anymore lately, and here's why I don't. So you have to think about the population that I predominantly work with. So I have kind of two camps, two jobs that I work with. Online, I work with a lot of people all over the world, ranging from fitness professionals, a lot of fit professionals. I work with people who've seen a lot of different people, and they're trying to see if movement helps on one end. And that's cash pay. And the other end is insurance-based. And the town that I work in, and a lot of the towns that I have worked in, aren't necessarily the richest communities out there. So from my perspective, I want to try to do or have these people spend the least amount of money as humanly possible to maximize their results. So I'm always going to go for the intervention that doesn't require them to do much. I'm trying to elicit good behavior change, and sometimes doing 1 to 2 exercises is probably all I'm going to get out of a person. With that framework in place, I made sure that I don't have to have people go out and buy shoes as frequently as possible. And what I found is by not focusing on this, eliminating shoes as a potential intervention, I had to double down on interventions I was currently giving, which most of that was exercise-based. And as I improved my coaching, my cueing, I redoubled my efforts on mastering the fundamentals. And that's really what my seminar, Human Matrix, is all about, is making sure people have the fundamentals in place. I've found that I've still been able to get substantial results with a lot of my clients without having to go to shoes. And that's what I feel most people gloss over. They'll have people buy expensive shoes or have them do barefoot or do all types of wild and crazy things when they don't have some of the fundamental concepts in place. Something as simple as making sure you're tucking your hips and exhaling with a lot of the breathing activities that I give. Most of the people who I work with, the overwhelming majority, even if they've gone to see other practitioners who do stuff similar to me, they don't have that in place. And a lot of times, if we focus on getting that in place, you don't have to worry about shoes. I should have the capability of wearing just about any shoe that I want, or no shoe whatsoever, and not falter and not break down. We call that, where I come from, adaptability, having the capability of wearing all types of different shoes. If you're stuck in one type of shoe and you are doing some activity that doesn't allow you to wear that shoe, maybe, going on a beach, or you're playing basketball and your shoes are not conducive to multi-directional changes, or maybe you're on a surface that doesn't allow you to be barefoot. If you can't wear another shoe and not thrive in that scenario, that's a problem. So what I try to instill in my clientele is teaching them the ability to thrive in many environments, and that starts with the one thing that's going to be consistent, and that's having movement options. So if I can demonstrate movement options with some of the lower intensity activities that I espouse on this website, and then I progress intensity to more challenging things and even various surfaces, then they're probably going to be okay. So we want to make sure that the foundation is in place before that we dive into something like shoes, if we even need to. I've found it very rarely that I haven't been able to get positive movement changes in someone without having to do shoes. If I do prescribe shoes, all that being said, if I do prescribe wearing certain shoes, it's usually it's usually done to modify symptoms or improve symptoms in the short term. And the intent is, if I do give someone a fancy pair of shoes, that I don't expect them to be in these forever. I expect them to have options. I expect them to be able to wear many different types of shoes. Typically, before I go into getting someone shoes, I will prescribe, or not even prescribe, I will do modifications to the current shoe wear that they have. This could be simply putting wedges in the shoes or putting arch supports in the shoes. My rule of thumb is if someone is everted at the calcaneus, where their foot's kind of flat, or they're inverted at the calcaneus, I'll usually put a wedge and tip them towards the center. I do that first, recheck things, recheck and see how they feel. If they're feeling good, that might be all I do. If they didn't get much change, I might throw an arch support in after that, then have them do their activities, see how things are going. If that works, then cool, you don't have to get a new pair of shoes. But let's say that that doesn't work and you've tried all the wild and crazy things that you've done before and you're still not getting much favorable change, then you might consider recommending some individual get shoes. I will link the shoe list that PRI recommends. They have a really good shoe list that they put together every year. I think a lot of those shoes are well and fine. The big keys that they espouse are making sure you have a stiff heel counter. I find that to be the most important. So if someone's got a stiff heel counter but the rest of the shoe's flexible, probably be okay. But stiff heel counter, you want a flexible forefoot or toe box. And ideally, this is not a good example of this, but ideally you want minimal movement in the arch. Although I would say out of those three, if you have a stable heel counter, you're probably going to get there most of the time. Let's say you've done that and you've still got some issues. Orthotics could be something you may consider utilizing. I typically will go with Superfeet first. Those are the cheaper options. Those are great. You can get those on Amazon for like $50. I've seen them work just as good as a custom orthotic. If by some chance that doesn't seem to work so well, then you might go ahead and get some customs. The guy I use Dr. Paul Coffin. I mean, he's made good orthotics for me in the past with some of my clients. A lot of the guys who I worked with in the league, we would get them custom orthotics. And they seem to get some good results with that. And I have, but realistically, in terms of how often I have to do that, if we scratch all the NBA stuff, because we could blow money on all types of stuff. Since then, since I've left the NBA, which was in 2017, it's 2019 right now, I have had one person get orthotics. And that's my girlfriend, because I can do stuff like that. So, you don't really need this stuff as often as you think if you have the fundamentals in place. And the times that I have had Superfeet, or some people get Superfeet in the last 2 years, 1 or 2. The times I've had someone buy brand spanking new shoes, probably once. The times I've made alterations in the shoe wear, probably in the last 2 years, maybe 10 people. So again, emphasize the fundamentals and the basics. And if you do those things more often than not, you're not going to have to go down that route that I just talked about. Make sure that someone can tuck, exhale, they can keep that stacked thorax over ribcage position, and they can demonstrate the ability to do that in many different situations. And if you do that, and you're still having some issues, then maybe go down the shoe wear route. but you probably don't have to that often. So, master the fundamentals, Alex, and you ought to be in business. Great question. Awesome question. That's fun. By the way, I will link those three things in the show notes, the shoe list, Superfeet, and Dr. Paul Coffin. Now, you heard me mention master the basics and stacking the pelvis underneath the thorax. If you want to learn how to do that and you've scoured the website, but you want some hands-on coaching with that, there's a place you can do that, and it's called Human Matrix. I want to throw this out right away, folks, because the early bird for Boston, which is October 5th and 6th, is done this Friday, the 6th at 11:55 p.m. So as soon as Friday's over, we are bumping up the price. This puppy is filling up real quick, so you want to make sure you get your ticket ASAP. If you can't make that one, though, I have November 23rd and 24th in New York City, December 7th and 8th in Orlando, Florida, and January 25th, 26th, 2020 in Scotts Valley, California, which is outside the Bay Area. Please sign up. Also, my website was out earlier in the week. If you missed the post, which is the links for the month of August, as well as some really cool productivity tips that I've been employing for myself that have been working really well, definitely check that out. I'll make sure to link that in the show notes as well. The next question, though. This one comes from Flock Fitness, my dude. He's good people. I like his hairstyle too, because we have similar hair. Although, Flock, you got to grow the beard one of these days. All right. How does one self-correct during breathing exercises? How can you tell if you are doing something correctly or compensating in ways that might reinforce bad habits? My dude Flock, great question. I think self-correction occurs just as you would with any other exercise that's not breathing-based. For example, if you're doing a deadlift and you perform 5 reps or whatever you prescribe, you might reflect on how that set went. How'd I feel? Wow, I felt a bunch of that in my back. I should probably do something different. And then you would make some adjustments and go from there. The same thought process occurs with breathing exercises. So as we're doing some of this stuff, there's a few keys you need to think about. First is, what is the goal of the activity? The goal with this activity, if you'll follow me on YouTube. For example, in an activity such as maybe a wall tilt 90-90 or like a side lying tilt like I use, which I'll link that in the show notes as well. The goal with that should be feeling hamstrings, glutes, if you're doing a bridge version, and abs. If you're not feeling those things, you probably need to make some changes. There's usually 2 or 3 areas that I have to coach frequently in order to meet some of those goals. The first would be, are you tucking effectively? If you're not, you might want to adjust that somehow. Usually the tuck is going to get you feeling the lower body component. The second thing would be the breathing sequence. Are you getting a complete exhale, which is what should get you the abs and should minimize back tension? Or because you also should consider you should consider things you shouldn't be feeling as well, like on those exercises I'd mentioned, whether it's 90-90, a side lying tilt, or even like a basic squat. You shouldn't feel your back and your knees, as an example. Make sure you get the tuck. Make sure you got the breathing sequence down pat, which would be a complete exhale. Pause, keeping the ab tension you acquired from the exhale, and then keeping the ab tension and inhaling for prescribed breaths. Those 2 things alone, focusing your efforts on that, which goes back to a lot of the stuff I talked about on the shoe portion, that will fix most of the issues. And if you really spend time getting yourself into that position, you're probably going to maximize your outcomes with an activity. If you're doing something with the upper body, you're reaching in a various direction, make sure you're getting a complete reach without an excessive increase in activity of the abdominals, in particular rectus abdominis. For example, if I'm doing a 90-degree reach and I reach forward and all of a sudden my rectus abdominis kicks in, I know that I'm probably not doing some desirable things at the thorax. For a 90-degree reach, I make sure the chest stays parallel to whatever surface I'm reaching towards. Same thing with overhead. if I'm doing like a 120 reach for someone who's wide, as an example, if I start to lose ab tension, then I'm probably reaching in a manner that is losing that stacked thorax over pelvis position. Those would be other things to consider as you are performing some of these breathing exercises. Many times I will check myself on the tuck and the amount of ab tension that I have during the pause. So ideally, if you're pausing for 3 to 5 seconds, that can give you some time to do a quick body scan, make sure you're feeling everything you need to feel before you go into the next breath cycle. Another way to make sure that the activity that you're doing is effective is to perform some type of self-test retest. For example, like for myself, I can't check like my shoulders and my hips, but what I look at to make sure that my activities are working effectively is a toe touch and a squat. So if I can touch my toes fully and I can perform a full squat, whatever I did, probably a good move for me. Ask yourself what those tests are for you. Maybe it's your ability to raise your arms completely overhead. Maybe it's your ability to perform the deadlift without back tension. Find something that is a limiter for you, and if you are doing these breathing exercises to address that limitation and you see a favorable change, you probably did well enough that you should keep performing the activity as you did. So to summarize, how do you know if you're doing this right? Make sure that you know the goal. Make sure you're emphasizing the tuck position of the pelvis. You got the breathing sequence down pat. You're reaching without creating any crazy changes in what you're feeling in the pelvis and the abdominal region. And I would perform a test retest. And if you do that, more often than not, you're probably going to get some favorable changes with your breathing exercises. And it's the same thing you would do in any other lift. Perform the exercise, reflect on things you could have done differently or better, make those adjustments, and get your movement option gains. Flock, my dude, great question. I hope you're doing well, man. The last question comes from Lucy. Here's what she asks. What to do, baby boy? I was wondering if putting joints in and out of place is not a good way and inaccurate method of explaining treatments to patients, why would something like position or talking about pressure and volume relationships be okay? Would this not also potentially cause maladaptive beliefs? Lucy, this is a really good question, so thank you for asking it. The short answer is when I'm talking about what I think I'm theoretically doing, I don't really go into that much detail with patients, and to me that circumvents developing any major maladaptive beliefs. And the reason why that is, well, putting joints in and out of place based on what we know in the research and how joints work is an inaccurate explanation for what's going on with treatments, one. Two, is probably leading to a lot of issues because with a lot of the people who've been explained of joints going in and out of place, it induces some degree of mental fragility. And then they develop fear of movement because certain things are going to go in and out of place. And it's unfortunate because it's due to an inaccurate explanation that individual was given earlier on in their treatment or their course of treatment. And there's actually a really good quote, like to the extent that this could go wrong. In this article, I got it pulled up around here. It was by Barlow, and I'll link this in the show notes because you probably should read it. Man. Okay, I can't find it, unfortunately. Wait, no, here we go. Boom. So this is Darlow et al., The Enduring Impact of What Clinicians Say to People with Low Back Pain. So this was a patient in this study who was given an explanation by a clinician that was wholly inaccurate. It was kind of like the joints going in and out of place. And here was the result of this explanation. When the current episode first happened, the only thing that was going through my mind is the seriousness of my disalignment of my back, set in context. I was really petrified. So this person was educated that their back was out of alignment and needed to be put back in place. You get scared in the sense that you could damage your spinal cord or anything to such an extent that you might become paralyzed. Wow. I definitely don't want to do anything that remotely resembles that. And that's why joints going in and out of place can be an undesirable explanation. I could totally see that happening when you're thinking about joint position. Oh, you have this limitation because your joint is not in place or is not in the right position, and I need to do things to get it back into position. Or you can't, here's another example, which is more the theory that I believe, you can't move fluid within the joint surface. We need to do activities so you have that ability to move fluid. To me, I could totally see that these could be things of the same, or problems of the same coin, but just different ways of having that problem. Moreover, too, even though I definitely believe that with a lot of the activities that we're doing, we're likely altering the fluid dynamics in joints, and I have to give kudos to Daddy O Pops, Bill Hartman, on really educating me on that. But I also have a degree of uncertainty with if that's really what's leading to the changes with the exercises that we're doing. Like, I can get really fast changes in range of motion with a lot of people, but there's so many factors that go into why we might see joint range of motion that I think it would even be short-sighted and myopic just to look locally at the joint, if that's even what's going on. There could be alterations neurologically or with all the systems, really. And I think that we're just not measuring enough things to know exactly why someone might get these quick changes. It's very complex. So the way that I educate my patients while trying to minimize maladaptive beliefs is this. I tell my patients, if you have limitations in movement, we're going to try to do activities to improve those movement limitations. The hope would be that, or in the case of someone who has limitations in a given joint, that might alter how you move, that might stress certain areas more so than others, and could be contributing to your problem. The good news is we can change this very quickly. If we can improve your movement capabilities in all of your joints, my hope is that evens out the workload distribution throughout your body and helps you with pain, more importantly, helps you get back to doing all the wild and crazy things you want to do. And I usually go with something along those lines when I'm educating just about anyone, and I haven't seen really any maladaptive things occurring. Like I don't have to go into further detail than that because that intuitively makes sense to most people. And I think that if you let the patients know and your clients that this is not something you're stuck with, you can make favorable changes. This is something that can be improved upon, and oftentimes quickly. Then the maladaptive beliefs don't have to be present because you're putting the locus of control in the patient or the client's hands. And with something like this patient who I talked about who had the disalignment in their back and they thought they were going to have a paralyzed spinal cord, that's not within their control. But improving their movement capabilities is. And if we gave this person right here on this Darlow article some degree of control, maybe he wouldn't have this fear, and maybe this individual would be able to get over the hump with their persistent pain. So to summarize, the quick answer is you don't have to go into detail because we really don't know if the theoretical underpinnings that we believe are going on when we get someone better are valid. There could be a lot of factors at play, and in fact there probably are a lot of factors at play. What I do to minimize maladaptive beliefs is I say, hey, you got some limitations, we can change these limitations very quickly, and my hope is that improves your symptoms and gets you back to living the life that you want to live. Lucy, unbelievable question. Whew, I think that's a good stopping point for us tonight. I want to thank all of you beautiful, sexy, outstanding people for tuning in. If you want to learn more, I would go to zachcouples.com. That's where the show notes will be tomorrow. There, if you sign up for my newsletter, you're going to get 5 hours worth of talks plus show notes. You'll get a free acute to chronic workload calculator, and you will get weekend goodies every Friday. Once you've done that, I would definitely... The Vivid system is in pain. What? You'll definitely want to do that. Also, I offer 3 services on my website. Movement consultation. If you are toying and you're not moving as well as you'd like to, or you're a coach or a clinician and you're having someone that you're struggling with from a movement perspective or even a pain perspective, and you're thinking, you know what, maybe if I can coach up the movement like I was talking about on this, that individual could get better. Well, I got an answer for you, and the answer is through that movement consultation, where we will go through your movement capabilities. We'll figure out where you can and cannot move. We'll restore your movement repertoire and get you in business. I can take that to the next level too, by the way. If you want to take those limitations, but you want to build fitness on top of that, maybe you're post-rehab, you're unsure where to start, or you want to see as a coach or a clinician what this looks like when I take someone from the rehab side of things to the training side of things, that's where online fitness training comes into play. Because I will take that information from movement consultation, apply it from a fitness perspective with your health and fitness goals in mind. Or if you want to learn how to do that with your specific clientele and you want to go the next step, then I would definitely look up into the mentorship program. In this, we will have good back and forth conversation and dialogue about how we can best implement this stuff into your client population. Once you've scoured ZachCouples.com, where I want to send you next is on iTunes and Stitcher. That's where the Zach Couples Show is. Because guess what, folks? There are 94 other debriefs. You might not want to look at me for all of them. That's where iTunes and Stitcher come into play. Please leave a review while you're there so we can help the fam grow. On social media, I'm on Facebook /ZCouples. The Twitter handle is @ZCouples. I'm also on the Instagram, baby. Zach, Z-A-C, Couples, C-U-P-P-L-E-S. Last but not least, go to YouTube, search Zach Couples. If you want to see the most up-to-date activities that I'm employing with my clients, that's where to find it. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been beautiful, sexy, and outstanding people. Keep it real, but not to the extent where things go wrong. Stay hungry, stay learning, stay moving, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.